Have you ever watched a movie or played a game and thought, this used to be so much better when I was a kid? I wasn't allowed to watch Monsters Inc. when I was a kid because my dad was convinced that any book or game or movie that has the word monster or hell or ghost or demon in it is gonna do bad things to a child's mind. So I never got to see it when it came out in 2001. Mainly because I wasn't born yet, but also because my dad wouldn't let me. So when I was around 19 or 20, one day when I was really bored and had nothing else to do, I figured, hey, let's watch that movie that appears on every top 10 animated movies of all time list. And I knew absolutely nothing about this movie except for that Mike Wazowski meme. And I didn't expect much going into it. I kind of thought it's gonna be like a Bug's Life, where it's an okay movie. It's a solid 7.5 out of 10, but it's nothing life-changing like Ratatouille. But then I watched it and it instantly became a core memory. Like, you know, in Inside Out, how whenever something really significant happens, the memory doesn't just roll into the backlog of memories that you've made that day, and instead it goes into this like specific section for core memories. I felt that happening in my brain when I was watching the movie. Like the ending or the chase scene where they kept jumping through doors, the dialogue, the dynamic between Mike and Sully, the designs, even the animation is amazing. Like somehow the 2001 render quality here fits this movie perfectly. I watched Monsters University after this, and that movie is a little too bubblegum. Like every character is a bit too, they're a bit too cute. Here the animation isn't like Toy Story 1 where you watch it and you get whiplash from the shit quality of the animation. Everything in the movie fits the movie perfectly. All of it just falls perfectly into place. It reignited a passion within me. It made me want to create something again. It made me wanna make things and use my imagination again. I also watched Onward in the same year. Ever since, I think, like 2013, every time a new Pixar movie comes out, there's always this talk about how they fell off and they used to make masterpiece after masterpiece, but now their movies just don't have the magic anymore. And every time that debate comes up, one of the responses to it is always, no, you just grew up and the only reason you love the old movies more than the newer movies is because you have nostalgia for the older ones. But with the new ones, there's no nostalgia and you're also an adult now, so obviously you're not gonna enjoy them in the same way. The quality is still really high, it's just that you're old now. And to a degree, there is some truth to that argument. Like, I really love the Barbie movies. I will happily rewatch Princess and the Pauper with my sister anytime she puts it on. But I'm not gonna deny, the only reason that I'm not bothered by its animation, and I really love the story and I enjoy it to the degree that I do, is because I have a lot of nostalgia for it. I'm pretty sure if I watched it today, I wouldn't have as much love for it as I do now. But sometimes things are actually just really that good and impactful. Like with the example I just gave you, Monsters Inc. is a fucking masterpiece. I also watched Onwards in the same year, but that movie is not nearly as close to my heart as Monsters Inc. is. And I'm not trying to say that nothing bad was being created back in 2001 and nothing good is being created today. That's just a false statement. I think the argument that you grew up, which is why you don't enjoy things as much as you used to, is just a load of bullshit, and it's such a depressing thing that doesn't hold any weight to it anyways. You grew up, which means in order to enjoy something and feel impacted by something, you're probably gonna need more than vibrant colors and a 3 out of 5 funny joke ratio. That doesn't mean that nothing is gonna stick anymore, and that doesn't mean that Incredibles 2 isn't a soulless cash grab and a terrible sequel to one of the best movies ever made. When someone says Incredibles 2 is a shameless, soulless cash grab, countering that with, no, you're just old and that's why you can't enjoy things anymore, that's really not the strong counter argument some people think it is. I've experienced a lot of media that has impacted me in the recent years. Just this year, I watched Nimona and Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, and those two movies just changed the way I experience life and my outlook on myself and the world. I played Red Dead Redemption 2 in 2019, and I experience Anton Ego flashbacks every time I hear the soundtrack or see a fan art of that game.
I'm afraid.
There is nothing to be afraid of, Mr. Morgan. Take a gamble that love exists and do a loving act.
masterpieces are still being made. They are few and far between because that's how masterpieces are, which is also why we feel like media isn't sticking as hard as it used to. There are a lot more shows coming out, a lot more movies coming out, and it's really easier to access a lot more media or content than it used to be 15 years ago, which means there's a lot more shitty stuff out there, there's a lot more mediocre stuff out there, there's a lot more good stuff, and I don't know if we can say there are a lot more masterpieces, but I think there are a lot more above 8 out of 10 content out there as well. I feel like I'm committing an art sin every time I refer to books and movies and series and games as media, and then I also use content as a synonym for media. I know, just bear with me. I think another reason for why nothing really sticks anymore and we feel like things aren't as good as they used to be, or at least they don't impact us the way they used to, is because we're also consuming a lot more. Now it's not just watching the TV or watching a movie, you're constantly consuming something. 24/7 you're either watching a movie or watching a series or playing a game or reading a book or listening to an ebook or listening to a podcast or watching a YouTube video or watching TikToks or watching Instagram reels that are just reposts of TikToks, and you're just consuming all the time without letting anything out. To me, consuming media is like eating food. You know, you have access to a lot of delicious food and you're eating all the time, and that's fine, but at some point you need to get up and go take a shit, and if you don't do that, you're just gonna end up being full of shit, and then you're just gonna feel bad and you're gonna have a stomachache and you're just not gonna, you know, feel comfortable, and food isn't gonna taste as good anymore. All of a sudden none of these seem appetizing, maybe partially because the quality of the food has decreased, but there are still so many good well-baked cakes and desserts and different types of food that you can still eat, but none of those seem good to you because you need to get up and go take a shit. And I know this comparison is kind of weird, but we are constantly consuming media and we rarely, if at all, give ourselves the chance to let something out, to let go of all of these stuff pent up in our brains. And I think we all need to let these things out. You need to create something, either write a story or a poem or just pick up a piece of paper and just start drawing random lines in it, or try pottery or crocheting or knitting or sculpting or I don't know, try to make mosaics or whatever. Just try something, and you don't have to be good, you just have to make something. And what you're making doesn't have to be good, it doesn't have to be great, it doesn't have to be masterful or anything, it just has to be. Just take the words that are stuck in your brain and write a poem that doesn't even rhyme. Just shit it out and then set it on fire if you want to. Let what you're creating be, and then let yourself be. Let yourself just exist. And then when you're washing the dishes, do it as if that's the most important thing you could do. And when you're drinking tea, let drinking that cup of tea be the most important thing you could do in your life. Kind of give your brain a rest. And when you come across something that does impact you, that does speak to you on a level that nothing else does, experience it more than once. I can't think of a movie that I've both enjoyed and have watched only once. If I've found any sort of redeeming quality in a movie, I've watched it at least twice. With games or books it's a bit harder because rewatching a movie is gonna take like 3 hours max, but replaying The Last of Us Part 2 is going to take 20 hours. So I get not replaying every single game that you play, even though I still do that, which is probably why I have so many games that I'm ashamed to admit I still haven't played, because I was busy replaying Hollow Knight for the 20th time. But if my choices are paying $70 for the newest half-assed AAA game or replaying a game that I've already played once and I know I've enjoyed, I'm pretty sure the amount of dopamine I'm gonna get from replaying that game is gonna be higher than whatever buggy mess of a game Ubisoft has released. Plus I'll save $70. So that's it. Bye!